everyone and beautiful people here in Nevada and around the world. Good evening. This is your open forum and we are here in Las Vegas, Nevada, PHLV Radio from 6 to 7. Tonight I have my panel for this show and I am your host, Josie Harrison. I will call them one by one and I will let them introduce themselves to you. But first, I would like you to know that all our shows are all archived on Facebook and also on my own website, openforumchannel.com. So you can watch all those archived past shows, okay? So anyways, this is an open forum whereby we encourage you to even make a comment, about the show and say something about what's going on. Don't be so silent anymore. We cannot be so timid right now. Just open up your mind and say whatever you feel and whatever you're thinking about what's going on here in our nation, all around the world. Anyways, I will let my panel introduce themselves to you. I will call on Mr. Cesar Elpidio.
Good evening to our loyal listeners every Monday night. I'm Cesar Elpidio. I'm one of your commentators. I'm a retired naval officer and also a retired faculty member of the University of Phoenix and a huge supporter of our Phil-Am community here in Las Vegas. So again, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and enjoy the show.
Okay, Charlotte.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Charlotte Evans. I'm a journalist by trade. I have decades of experience in broadcast news and also in print journalism. In my capacity on this show, I get to be a commentator offering my opinions. I've been a lifelong Democrat since 1984 when I could first vote, but I will be switching to Republican this year because I feel that even though I'm probably more of a libertarian, I feel that the Republican Party is the one that's at least going to enact some things to make this country safer and stronger.
Okay, thank you. Dali.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to PHLV Radio's Open Forum. And I am so privileged to be one of the co-hosts of Josie Harrison. Now, I just want to let you know that I was a former teacher and former editor-in-chief. And at the moment, I am semi-retired. I'm a licensed marriage officiant. And if you want to get married in Las Vegas, just holler and I'll get you married. Thank you.
June.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am June Magada, currently in Miami, Florida, the big red state, Republican state. So anyways, welcome for tonight's episode. Glad to be here. There's so much to talk about tonight. And my profile, I'm actually a Navy veteran. I used to serve in USS Kitty Hawk, U.S. aircraft carrier, U.S. Navy, and also on Operation Enduring Freedom. I'm a big Second Amendment supporter and a proud conservative.
Okay, thank you. Mitch Lozada.
Hey everyone, good evening. My name is Mitch Lozada. I'm a YouTuber, commentator. I do current events, reviews, pop culture, social political commentary, and on the side, I am a U.S. Air Force veteran here in Las Vegas, and so we have a lot of topics tonight, and excited to talk. So let's go, let's have fun.
So anyways, I would like to call on Mitch. Mitch, open up our topic for tonight, because today I was watching the news on Newsmax. My goodness, everything about Ukraine. Ukraine's news monopolized Newsmax today. So I'll give you the floor. Go ahead and open the discussion for us.
Yeah, so the biggest news this weekend, and coming from last week into the last show and everything, is everything that's happening in Ukraine, you know? I know we had discussions about it a few weeks ago as far as if when Russia will ever incur and do an invasion on Ukraine, but we never imagined how much of an aggressive invasion they did on Ukraine. We thought it was going to be something kind of like very slow approaching, just taking small parts of here and then coming back. But on February 24th, as of last week, Russia did a full assault onto an invasion into the country of Ukraine. So much so, like now people have been fleeing from Ukraine citizens, including the president. Zelensky has taken arms, telling his people, especially those willing to fight, and even men, they can't even leave, those who are 18 and 60, between those ages, now they have to kind of like defend the country. And so now the eyes are all over the world watching what's going on in this global conflict. We're seeing what's happening, and again, this isn't anything that was slightly like Russia has been attacking from Belarus, from the north and to the eastern side into Kharkiv and into the capital. And so we're seeing a lot of things happening. And I think it goes to show like what a surprise this is. And, already President Biden has tried to put on sanctions against Russia, and we are seeing other countries follow suit. And it's just, there's a lot of going on here. And I think what's interesting, I'll now pass it on to my fellow co-host. I think my biggest take is that this is really crazy as far as in our social media type of era, that we're watching a lot of things on the spot. We're seeing things from Snake Island. We're seeing people who are saying like there's a Russian warship and they're like, hey, we're gonna fire on you. And these Ukrainian soldiers, they're like, hey, if we're gonna die, we're gonna die. And they say like F you to the Russian warship. And we're seeing things about the Ghost of Kiev, a person taking down an ace pilot, taking some of these things down. And what's also interesting is, again, with such an informational warfare, we don't even know if some of these things are true. We're even seeing things kind of like on the Miss Ukraine, a former Miss Ukraine, trying to say like, hey, my country's being under attack and I'm going to be on the front lines. And same thing with, like I said, President Zelensky, who I don't know if he's actually in the front lines. I don't think so, but it shows morale and that he's putting a flak jacket, telling what he was saying to Biden. Biden saying like, hey, you need a ride out. He's like, no, I need ammunition. I don't need a ride. And so it's really crazy what we're seeing in live, because, normally a lot of these things used to go very slowly. And when it came to things kind of like in the Middle East, it wasn't on the spot what's going on. And I think that's what's really interesting in this hot conflict. So I pass it on to everyone else to see what they want to say about what's going on in Ukraine.
Well, talking about sanction, do you think Putin really cares about whether the White House had sanctioned them? Putin was reportedly, it was reported that he prepared himself for this before they attacked Ukraine. He was able to, I believe the figure was almost $700 billion were added to his assets as far as, military preparedness is concerned. He could care less whether other countries would follow suit, after the United States to sanction them. There's so many reports have been made about this. So let's listen to our other co-hosts. Thank you.
Go ahead, Cesar.
Okay. My take on this one, after looking at the last few days as the events unfurled, is that I think this may be the first time that the EUs are coming together as a nation, as a continent. Because if you notice, even Switzerland, some of those that are non-NATO and neutral countries like Sweden, Finland, and they're all tightening the screws on Putin, especially the financial, because it looks like their ruble has gone down to less pennies now. And I think this may be the beginning of NATO countries taking care of themselves, rather than the United States always being up there leading all this actions against an invader. So I think it's good that they're now beginning to take care of their own backyard, so we don't have to go over there. And hopefully Putin will look at the effects of economic warfare that's being waged against him, that there will be some resolution to this one.
Charlotte?
I agree. The dynamics are changing so rapidly worldwide. And I think one of the fascinating snapshots would be what's happening with Germany. Initially, the government in Germany was dragging their heels on fierce sanctions even after Russia had invaded. But I think it's the German people who rallied and got angry with their own government and said, "You are not letting us look like the bad guys again." Absolutely not. I think the German people are so sensitive to any sign of being inhumane that I think the German people snapped their own government into shape immediately. And so the German government was willing to bite the bullet and go along with the sanctions because of popular outcry. What I'm curious about in our country is, it seems like there is almost unanimous consent or a feeling that we should have taken these sanctions sooner. As soon as troops were massing along the border 6 months ago, something punitive should have been done to let Putin know this is not appropriate. We don't think it's a war game, because we never did think it was a war game. We thought it was a threat, from what I understand. And Mitch, you probably had some briefings about this over the months, but what do you think? Should we have taken some sanctions before it ever got to the point of an actual armed conflict?
Well, real quick, I think it's ridiculous as far as how we got here. We already know, like, this is fall of Afghanistan all over again, right? Like, the fact that Biden had to remove the Trump sanctions already on Russia, and now he has to put it. He took it off when he got to president. Now he's putting back on the Trump sanctions. So already it's ridiculous. I also saw things like Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks saying things like, "Oh, Republicans are happy Russians are attacking, like the Republicans on the side of like these Russians." I don't see one conservative saying one tweet that is not on the side of Ukraine, and it's ridiculous, and it shows the hypocrisy. I even saw like on a tweet of Occupy Democrats, they're saying like no one should have, like back in whatever year, no one should have 2A, and then now they're hearing things like, "Oh yeah, we're like citizens of Ukraine should have the right to bear arms so they can defend their country." The hypocrisy is super crazy and it's dumb. And then in regards to Charlotte's question, as far as military intel, it's kind of surprising that I'm learning a lot more details through social media than what we're at least saying through the intel briefings. You know, I'm in a situation where I'm hearing these intel briefings more on a bullet points. It's a broader type of intel brief, but like I'm more interested on the individual level, like you were saying, like how the citizens are. And I don't know if you guys saw, but like it's interesting because some of the Russian soldiers are kind of like surrendering in a sense where they some of them are conscripted into the service. Like some of them were saying like, "I just got called, I'm a reservist, I got called last week. This was all an exercise. We didn't know about this whole incursion type of thing." And so it's really crazy that, you know, when it came to like things in the Middle East, it was about ideology, and that's how you rally up your people against other nations. But when it comes to these Russian people, Russian soldiers, a lot of them don't want to be there. And I'm really interested to see how this plays out, because we live in such a social media reality, and them too. I see them going in parachutes with their social media, and so it's crazy to look now to see like how is the psychology of these soldiers when really some of them don't want to be there. We're even showing counter propaganda I think from the Ukraine saying like, "Hey, if you want to defect, if you want to have amnesty, if you want I forgot how many money and compensation." And so it's really interesting to see how all of this is playing out. So,
you know, the Russian citizenry really did not like that this war is happening. There was a segment I saw on TV where there are American reporters, journalists interviewing the citizens, and they do not approve of what their own government is doing to Ukraine. Majority of them, from what I have seen, and
absolutely, Dolly. A lot. You're right. Russian citizens This is a country that has been through war after war after war. And the people of every generation in Russia who are alive today are saying, we do not want another conflict. They're saying it privately. They can't go out in public and protest. Those who've been brave enough to do that have been arrested. But there's no appetite among the Russian citizens to invade their neighbor Ukraine, where a lot of them even have cousins, second cousins who live across the border.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Go ahead, June.
yeah. So, well, just to answer, to follow up on Charlotte's question. Yeah. Biden should have made that move a long time ago to prevent this, but we know how he does his work. He kind of like molasses most of the time, or majority of the time. Even now that the war has started, they're still not sending them help until after 4 days of being in war. Like they never actually, Zelensky even made a comment that, where are you the countries, he's mentioned the countries that supposed to back him up if this thing ever happened, and there's nobody in there to help him up until he actually started calling them and actually asking for help, but nobody was in there. None of the NATO people that told him that, yeah, we're going to make you an ally, but they never did. And it's just a sad thing. These people, they don't have, we all know, they don't have capability to fight this war with Russia. Okay? They don't have anything. That's why they're asking for ammo. It's as simple as that. They don't have anything at all. But, there's supposed to be the people that they're trying to go to for, supposed to be build friendship with allies are never there, because that some of them are actually being influenced by Russian oligarchs, the UK politicians and all that. So that's why they're, taking their time making decisions and helping Ukraine, which is so sad. People are dying there every day, and that's why Russia are keep doing the same thing they're doing. And they even came up with this nonsense that they're gonna meet up in the Belarusian border to make a talk or something today, supposedly. And I'm not even sure what is the talk about, because for me, the way I look at it, and it's common sense. If you're gonna make a peaceful talk, or supposedly planning to make a negotiation, right, on the war, you're not gonna keep bombing my place. It's as simple as that. But if you keep doing what you're doing until now, you're actually getting close to the capital of Kiev. I don't know what you're planning to do. You're trying to assassinate the head leader, so you take away the important person in the country, and you can take it over easily. That's what they're planning to do. Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna add something too. I know that Biden already placed a sanction to Russia, right? It was kind of a little bit too late. And on the other side is that he actually gave the intel to China and China turned around and gave it to Russia. The sanction is trying to do. I'm like, how can you be more stupid than that, dude? I mean, seriously? Mm-hmm. I mean, intel.
Whoever is running the White House is doing a really frightening job. And this should have been stopped. This should have been stopped months ago. One of the reasons it couldn't be is, as I think was it Mitch first alluded to, Biden right away lifted what Trump had in place. So immediately you gave a chance for Russia to feel comfortable, for Putin rather, not Russia, Putin to feel comfortable getting a little bold with his military while he was pocketing cash. All of this was building up over the last year, where he's been lining his pockets so he'd have a reserve that he thought would carry him over if he wanted to do something like this. We had just been so weak and asleep at the switch, and the fact that we gave up our energy independence, we can't help ourselves, let alone our European friends, the way we should be able to, the way we're capable of, because we've neutered our energy sector.
Yeah.
Yes, and I don't know if you guys know, we're actually importing like 40 million barrels of oil from Russia, and I'm like, and you want to sanction this guy? What do you have to sanction this guy for? If it tells you that I'm not going to give you fuel or oil or whatever, what are you going to do about it? You can't do anything.
You know, June, since you mentioned, are you finished? I'm sorry. You want to finish?
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
No, since you mentioned about barrel of gasoline, barrel of gas. Okay. If I remember correctly, there were it's almost 800,000 barrels are being produced by the pipeline XL, and we are actually exporting almost 300 barrels. From Ukraine.
I just want to jump in and help you, Dolly. I think if you're talking about the Keystone Pipeline, which wasn't completed, but had they completed it, it could have carried 800,000 barrels of oil, I believe, a day. Which would have offset all the oil, dirty oil, that we're currently getting from Russia. We're getting oil from Russia. Europe's getting oil from Russia. But if we had the Keystone Pipeline completed, first it needs to be completed. Yeah. And if it was pumping up to capacity, that would be one more thing to make our country and all of our allies so much stronger. But we don't even have that as a resource because they killed the project.
That's an absolute rescue, Charlotte.
President.
Yeah.
That's the first thing he signed to stop that.
I don't know if you guys remember when Trump was actually talking to some of the European leaders before, and he said, I think it's unfair for the United States that we're actually spending money to protect you. He's talking about Germany and France, right? We're protecting you against other nation while you're actually buying oil from them. It doesn't make sense.
Trump had so much balls to talk to the head of NATO like that in person. It was amazing to see. I want to ask all of you something. A lot of people have been inspired by what the Ukrainian president Viktor Zelensky. Thank you very much. Him staying in Ukraine and saying, I don't want the air lifted out, I want ammo. And him staying there is a really powerful move. Do we even think for 1 minute that our own president would stay in the White House if he was in the same situation?
No, he actually went on vacation.
Okay,
and they're saying he had to attend a funeral. But let's be honest, if Trump was the president and Trump had to attend a funeral, he would fly to that funeral and he would go right back to the White House because the world has a war going on right now. It's not a world war, but it affects the whole world. And we have a weak, pathetic president who won't even stay in Washington. I mean, yes, go to the funeral service, if indeed there really is one. Go to the funeral service and come right back. But if we were being invaded, I think Joe Biden would be one of the first people to get on a helicopter and fly out of Dodge.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever noticed this? Like on his couple of previous appearances in the White House, the setting is actually fake.
Yeah.
Like it's not in the real White House. It makes you wonder, right? Something's happening, right? He knows something's happening, so he's hiding himself somewhere instead of actually sitting where he's supposed to sit, like Zelensky. Right. But it's a joke.
They said that it's easier for the cameras to build a fake stage for him. So
Charlotte, I just want to mention to you, Charlotte, that Germany, they are sending weapons to Ukraine.
Yeah.
You know that they are.
Let me add something about the weapons too. Okay, check this out. So
the United States is sending $350 million worth of military equipment.
Yeah, which if we had a great leader, we weren't supposed to spend that extra $350 million. You know why? You know how much you think is all the weapons that we left in Afghanistan and we never ever worried about getting back.
Those could have been transported across.
$8 billion.
Yeah.
$8 billion.
You could have made Ukraine the next following day and drop all those weapons in there. All those helicopters, those Humvees, weapons, ammos that we left in there. But he never bothered to go back in there and get it. Because
I think June might have mentioned about Biden being frightened and having a set. The set for him to do these talks was always because he can't speak unless he has something to read. But I think you might be onto something. I actually think in his heart of hearts that our president, our current president, is a bit of a scaredy cat. I don't think he wants to be in the White House. I mean, he wants to have the power, but where is he showing that he is strong and brave and
Okay, just think about this, right? Why would you pass the intel to one who's supposed to be your biggest enemy, China? Why don't you go directly to Russia and tell them this is the sanction we're doing?
Yeah.
What is China your boss or something?
it's because
June,
you're the intelligent
that
kid on
seems
the
to be a pattern. Remember, that seems to be a pattern for his handlers, because that's the same thing that they did with Afghanistan. They gave all the names of the American citizens in Afghanistan to the Taliban to say, "Oh, protect these people."
Oh yeah.
So the same thing that what we're doing with the Chinese.
Well, here
Yeah,
right
well-
now, it's happening. Right before we started this program live, I believe it's a 40-mile-long convoy of Russian weaponry that's rolling toward Kyiv right now. So things, I mean, it's already it's already bad, but something really, really bad could be coming up in the next couple days, because if Putin is frustrated, if he feels he's being politically embarrassed, if he feels that his troops aren't making the impact, I worry. A lot of folks are speculating that he'll use one of his larger bombs.
Yeah.
You know, I was watching the
Okay.
news. I was watching Newsmax today, and it was such an inhumane for them to show that one tank, you know, a big tank was riding along just the regular road, I think, city road or whatever, and there's a car meeting the tank. Do you know what the tank did? He ran over. Did you see it? He turned around and ran over that car, and the car was all flattened. That's
You know what's shocking is they say that the person in that car was actually pulled out alive. I don't know if they're still alive.
Is that right?
They must
I
have
don't
a
know how you're going to
course.
be alive without having tank running you over. I don't know. How is that possible?
Yeah. That's a Tiananmen
That's a
Square
miracle.
version.
It was a war crime, and we all saw it. We saw the video of this tank deliberately running over a passenger vehicle.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. When I saw that, I said, "Oh my God, how inhumane you are!" I mean, you know, you want to invade their country or their state. I mean, you don't do that. You don't be an evil. Just show the people that you are really evil. You know, I don't see that.
Well, guys, I also heard, I just read it here, that Senator Blackburn and some other legislators are trying to put a bill to remove Russia from the NATO
Yes.
seat.
Yes, I saw that too.
I mean,
However,
United Nations. United Nations.
United Nations. The only thing is, they were asking our U.S. ambassador, and she was saying, "No, it's not going to happen, but we can just punish Russia." But I think that's a good move to really remove Russia from that NATO seat of where they have a veto power.
And it was also on Newsmax, you know, tonight that Putin hired missionaries to kill Zelensky. Isn't that ridiculous?
Missionaries?
Yeah.
Mercenaries.
Mercenaries.
Mercenaries, yeah.
Well, they could have
Mercenaries.
I cannot read my own handwriting here.
So he,
But you know, all things aside, though,
I don't know how true that is.
we got to start looking at the big picture. Okay, this is the way I look at it. Okay, last year was a test for Biden, see how he can actually manage being a president of America, and he completely failed that test. Now he's actually whatever they want. Like what I said, it might be just the beginning, because what happened to when Russians started invading Ukraine, and the United States never really did anything about it. Now China, on the other hand, is starting doing something else. Okay, so that's the other picture we should be looking at. Also, now nobody's looking around anywhere else. North Korea could be there too, and Iran might continue their nuclear weapon development at the same time, because they know this is their moment. Like I said, we got 3 more years to deal with this nonsense, unfortunately, because we have a weak leader at the White House.
So
we still have Mitch with us. Oh, good. You're still there. I was going to ask you a
yeah.
question.
So just one more quick thing before I head out tonight early. It's a State of the Union address tomorrow. The freedom convoys of the truckers should be entering Washington, D.C. There's a lot of news happening this week. I think it's interesting. It's only been a year. We had the fall of Afghanistan. We have still COVID, which obviously Ukraine is... There's no more COVID now. It's Ukraine. That's the news cycle. COVID is gone. It's Ukraine. And again, Ukraine just... Well, it's been a year, and it is... Putin and Biden is exactly what these people thought Trump was. They thought like Trump was a fascist, like this Putin guy. They thought Trump was some feckless leader who couldn't handle things. It's Biden. It's Let's Go Brandon who is doing this and not do. There's nothing built. There's nothing better. There's nothing back. You know, if there is back, it's World War III. Like that's the only thing that's back. And so I just want to throw that in because again, there's a lot of news coming this week. So I wish this was a great discussion, but have fun discussing the rest of the night. So,
hey, Mitch,
good
before you
evening.
go,
Carlos has a question.
I want to add up something. I just saw before I actually came to the meeting. There's some people out there hiring actors right now to disrupt the convoy thing, the protest. Like they did January 6th. So they're doing the same thing. They're hiring actors to do the same thing.
How much does
to
it
make
pay?
it work for all of us. Yeah, so it's just crazy. These people
Yeah,
are like
those idiots that pretended to be white supremacists with tiki torches.
Yeah,
and they were
yeah.
federal Democrat employees.
yeah.
Charlotte, you and I, we can go.
Mitch,
Wrong
I
color.
think Charlotte have a question.
I know you have to go, Mitch. I just wanted to ask you, amongst your fellow service people, is everyone talking about the fact that this is going to be played out with cell phones, with citizens, and we've never really seen anything like this at this level? Are your troops, your fellow service people saying that America is in for a real shock when they see what's really going on? Because we're going to see a glimpse into what's happening in the next couple days that we've never really seen in warfare before.
Not on the individual, us talking amongst ourselves, but nothing on a wider scale, talking from top down and everything. And again, it's what I was mentioning earlier, that all of this is really interesting as far as we're getting information as it comes in real time. Again, it is really, it's again, when it came to pass, even when let's say even 9/11, we still had our technology, but when a lot of the service members went into it saying that there was weapons of mass destruction, and we, even as ourselves, we could have been manipulated very easily, even back 20 years ago. But now it's really hard to go and lie. Even if you are saying lies, it's still a lot to filter. And I don't think it's really one aspect of war is that the psychological level, right? You want to be, you have to want to fight for something, and for Russian to be the aggressors, I don't know how this will pan out. Again, like I was saying, there's a lot of their soldiers who are very young, 18, 19, 20, who are in this fight, not necessarily wanting to be in this fight. They're just there because they, one, didn't know that this was an actual event. They thought this was an exercise. And then two, some of them are just like, hey, I just was called in. And so I'm really interested how this will play out, because I don't know if, as much as Putin is putting a heavy hand, I don't know if they can hold Ukraine, especially when you have these citizens really wanting to fight for Ukraine, the citizens wanting to fight for Ukraine, and all the eyes are on Russia right now. And so I'm really interested to see how this will play out. So again, to answer your question, nothing on a wider scale, but again, like I was talking to my individual friends and coworkers, that, like you said, like, this is interesting that we're learning about all this information via social media, Instagram, TikTok, of all things. And so, which is also bad too. It's because on a military aspect, you can gather intel what your enemies are doing or not doing just by watching their social media. So if I'm posting where I'm at, it can show you the background of all the signs. But one thing that was interesting to me as the Ukrainians are fighting back, not only creating Molotov cocktails, they are apparently, from what I'm hearing, they are spray painting signs and street names and everything so that it's confusing the Russians, the non-locals, of what streets they're on. So I think that's really smart, and we're seeing a lot of different urban. We are eyewitnessing different types of warfare right now. Combination of urban warfare as well as social media warfare. So this is kind of like changing the game as far as how we are approaching warfare, because again, this is not World War II anymore, or as more recent as Vietnam, or even the things in Afghanistan or the Middle East. So it's really interesting how this is playing out. So,
Mitch, I have a question for you. I know you're rushing to one last question. Since you are an active military personnel, do you think what is happening will trigger the real World War III?
Watch it.
I know. Like I brought it up, and I don't want to be hyperbolic, but because China has made it clear, like the fate of Ukraine is the fate of Taiwan. So if Putin does take a foothold of Ukraine, that is very much the way in which China will attack Taiwan, right? And so now we're seeing this global conflict not only in the European theater, but the Pacific theater as well. And so if it escalates to that one, that might be very well where this is all leading. I really don't want to say anything further than that, just because I don't know, and things are changing. Like this just happened last Thursday. It's 5 days now later, and this is very organic, and things are changing, and things are changing at day to day. So I don't know how all of this is planning out. So
We need to pump more oil domestically pronto. And hopefully American citizens are rallying, just like the German citizens kind of shook up their government and said, no, we're going to do something. We're not sitting on the sidelines. We're going to help these people.
And when I pray to God, all I